we're going to hook up my air conditioner here, and there's the other one. It's somewhere in here, and then we're going to hook the gauges up and see what we come up with. All right, so we got our new gauge set, got all the wires hooked up, got my new bottle of 134 hooked to my inlet tube. And this wasn't terribly cheap, about 70 bucks, but I like it because with the two different gauges showing you the high pressure and the low pressure side of the compressor or the system, you can really do a lot better troubleshooting as far as to what parts may be bad if they are. And what I got going on in this thing is I've tested it. The compressor will run if I force the clutch on. So that's not the issue. What the issue is there is no refrigerant in the system, or there's a pressure switch, actually I think it's right here, that says I don't have enough refrigerant in there, don't run the compressor or you're going to burn it up. So it's a safety. So what I need to do now is I need to take these off and put these in my pocket because I have a bad habit of losing these silly things. Come on. And they're different sizes. The high side is, I believe, bigger than the low side. Or is it? Yep. So you take your, let me get a light on here. Yeah, that's only going to work till it falls off. But you take your low side, and she goes down in there. And so you got to pull up on it and then push it on, and then it'll clip. Which is easier said than done a lot of times because, let's see, first off, it's a new hose, so it's kind of twisty. And second, these aluminum pipes are a little flimsy. So you want to make sure, there she goes, when you're connecting it, not to break it. And then the same goes for the high side, or the red. It's a little, on this car, it's a little further out in the open. And she pops up in there. And you got to make sure she locks down when you do that. So, and if there were anything in the system, we'd see something on these gauges, but as you can see, there is nothing going on. All right, so now the engine's running, all the AC is on, and we have nothing. So what you need to do now is, after you've attached your can, turn the knob in until it punctures it, back it out, and sometimes the procedure differs, but now you got to crack the low side knob. Get that standing upright. And now you got to crack the low side knob, and let it suck some in. Most likely going to take more than a can. It's a large system with that rear air. About halfway done now. You can see we're getting some high pressure, and my compressor is running, so the pressure switch works. I've investigated this system as best I can outside. Okay, so now shut that off. This can is dead empty. But we're still running. Low pressure on the low side and low pressure on the high side. So we need some more refrigerant. Now, take off that can. Back on a new one. Same thing. And now we're going to open this again. Put a little more in. We're going to watch. And as you can see, the high pressure is starting to come up. Low pressure is staying good. So I don't think the compressor is my problem. I've probably got a leak somewhere. High pressure is still coming up. Low pressure is bobbling because of the tank. can is going down. That one's almost empty in and of itself, so this may take 2 full cans. We'll see when that low pressure starts dropping again. That can is out. High pressure is good. Let's try to shut this off. Let's get the last of that little can in there. It is just about empty. Alright, so that can is empty. Shut that off. Okay, so we got decent green and green. Come over here and look at the instructions. It's about 85 degrees today, so the low side should be somewhere around 40. High side should be somewhere around 220. And we are a little below 40 and a little below 220, so I can probably put some more in, but we're going to see what the temperature looks like. And you guys can't feel it. Yeah, we're not really getting cool air. The front's not bad, but the rear is kind of hot. Maybe if I cycle that. Guess then, let's see what the pressures have done. What the hell? Okay, well, the compressor has shut off. We're running basically equalized pressure, which is correct, but there is something amiss because it had started to cool and then the compressor shut back off. So this is going to take a little bit more troubleshooting. I have the service manual, so I should be able to figure it out. Feeling down here if I can feel any of these cold going back into the car, and there's a little bit of cold, but not a whole hell of a lot. But you can see, you know, when the compressor's off, the pressure across the system equalizes, so that's what you're going to get. But why the compressor kicked off, I'm not sure at this point. So that's interesting. So we're going to have to do some more troubleshooting. Well, that was simple. I'm an idiot. The compressor turned off because I took it off max AC and just put it on vent, which kicked the air conditioner off. So I pushed the air conditioner button and look at that, we got air again. So we're still running a little bit low. So we're gonna let it cool a little more. Woo! Yeah, now we're moving some heat. What I don't know if I hear, what I don't know at all, is if this unit has a secondary fan. It doesn't seem to. It just seems to have the radiator fan. Let's check our engine temperature. Because this cooling is kind of weak. The engine temperature is good. I'm going to put a little bit more Freon in it. My last can. Get those temperatures up to red anyway. pressures up to where they should be, given the ambient temps. Okay, so let's see, crack that valve. And what we're going to do, since the suction side is affected really by what's coming out of the can, I want to watch the discharge or the high side. So that's still staying a little bit at 200. You can see it's starting to come up. I want to get it to about the middle of that 200 to 250 because it's pretty warm out today. I want it to be about 220, 225 according to the manual. We're getting there. We'll shut it off. Let's see where we're at. Okay, so we're a little high on the low side, but we're about range on the high side. So that'll work. Got a nice hot pipe. Weirdly, everything just feels hot. This, oh, hey, okay, I figured out how to turn the vent on. Huh, so that's cool. I didn't realize those rotated. It's kind of neat. I thought I had a bad vent. Yeah, I mean, it's cooling in the back, but the back really isn't. And the front is mediocre at best. It'll probably cool a little better when we're moving, but it should be able to hold its own because it's not terribly hot out right now. Let's go try something. I'm gonna put it on rear control. I'm gonna see if this does anything. Fan. We got plenty of air. There's something going on with the heat exchanger back here, because it is not getting terribly cold. Try something here. Oh, she'll put out some heat, so that transition's working. She will put out some heat. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to take this for a drive and see what we get. Front is cool, but it's certainly not what I would call cold. And our pressures are about the same. So I'm gonna close that up for now. So we're out cruising. The air conditioning's not doing too bad. The rear is, I mean, it's 86 degrees outside, so the rear is lower than ambient, but it's not really cooling. The front feels pretty good, but I just noticed something else. I wonder, I've got a little tiny vacuum hose that I don't know where it goes up front, and I just noticed that all of this stuff in here, all of the vents and things and transitions is vacuum, and I had bumped it from vent, which it's on right now and it's blowing crazy here, to max while I was driving, and it didn't switch. It kind of just stayed there, and then I got off the gas, which would cause the engine to draw more vacuum, and it immediately switched. Like, aha. So there's a vacuum leak somewhere, whether it's in the dash, down in the back of this thing, or it's actually the feeder cable underneath the hood that brings engine vacuum in. That's interesting because the vents but that's kind of an interesting thing I'm gonna have to figure out. Alright, and thinking about that vacuum issue I just noticed, as there is no connection in the back between any of these cables in the rear, I wonder if there is a vacuum hose back there that controls the heater and the air conditioner, or possibly even two. I know I had an old Mercedes that had a, I hope that air conditioner blowing on this thing wasn't making a lot of wind. That'd be great. That'll be good video. But my old Mercedes had a bunch of little vacuum bells in there, and boy, if they failed, they were a pain to change, super expensive, and really annoying because none of the damn climate control positioning would work. This seems to work, it's just not as good as I would think it should be. Oh man, these brakes are great. God, I'm happy with that. I wonder, now it still doesn't explain why I didn't have any fluid in this thing. Doesn't explain that at all. But we'll see how that does now that I've recharged the system. But I'm wondering if that rear AC has some sort of a valve to transition between heat and air, and I wonder if it's not transitioning as much as it should, based on the position of the the red blue type of positioning. I wonder. So that's going to be something I need to look at. Something else, you can hear that. That's the blower motor. It's moving some air, but there's no way it should be making that much noise. So at some point I'm going to take that out, just clean it anyway, lubricate it, see if maybe that'll help get rid of that noise. But the cooling's doing pretty good. I've been able to, I mean, it's almost 90 degrees outside, and this car has no tint because it's from Illinois, and it's doing pretty good for front only. So when it cools, it cools. Now I just got to figure out the back, and I'll bet that's vacuum related. So we're doing a little more troubleshooting of the rear air. Pulled the temperature control door actuator off because I thought that might be my issue. It does not appear to be. The little thing rotates perfectly linearly with the knob on the dash, and when I stuck a screwdriver in there and moved the door, I definitely get full heat here, but I don't really get any cold. The heat goes away, but it's just kind of lukewarm, even though the front vents are blowing pretty cold right now. So I am going to have to take another step and put this back, because that's not my problem, and see if there is some sort of a valve that might send the refrigerant back here to the evaporator core. Because it does not seem that we are getting refrigerant flow. All the lines underneath are good. I checked them. They're aluminum, so they're not all rusty. Everything looks good underneath. But I haven't done enough to determine exactly what's going on in terms of getting coolant back here. So that's going to be my next step. Okay. So general consensus is that thing with the hat on top of it down there is the expansion valve for this rear system, and that is what fails and keeps the back from cooling if the blend door is working, which mine is. So that is going to be ordered, and conveniently it's only 20 bucks because there's no moving parts. So we're going to have to, I'm just going to throw this back together because I don't want it rattling around while I'm driving, and then we'll deal with it when the part comes in. So I'm about to finish up with my air conditioning repair, and everything's looking pretty good right now. I'm going to show you what I had to do to get the AC in the rear working again. Ta-da! It was actually this little piece right down here. That is your thermostatic expansion valve. Cost about 20 bucks. And comes with 4 O-rings. And it does something about inside of it. There's a capillary tube, and it moves a little valve that allows the Freon or refrigerant to flow into the heat exchanger. The piece that I checked before is this one here, which is the actuator that controls the temperature flap. It works perfectly and adjusts properly. You also have another one up here that I'm not sure exactly what it does, but it was fine. So, and I mean, as long as we're in here, obviously here's your rear fan, here's your resistor for the fan, all of that stuff works fine. To get this off, it was a bit of a faff. First thing you got to do, you got to take basically the whole coping off of the back, which allows you to pull the bottom piece off of here and the top piece down off of here. Then you can pop out the side here, at which point you need to remove a couple of screws here and here and a bunch of little pop pins, and you can take the carpet out after you take the top door off and the jack. Then you can take a couple of more screws out of here and pop the rest of this cover with the flaps on it off. After you do that, you have to pull the seatbelt anchors out of here and up here, as well as in the front there and at the bottom. Then you come around, and there's one little bolt up here inside of this C-pillar cover, and that takes, you unscrew that, it's captured so it won't fall out, or it should be anyway. And after you do that, you can pop the C-pillar cover off, and then you can start wiggling this thing to get it out. You know, all of this whole cover comes out at that point. It's a bit to get it around this seat and took a bit of finagling, but I was able to get it out, didn't break it, and it's in good shape. So then I, of course, evacuated the system and changed this out. And it's just, you know, 4 metric fittings. I think the top 2 are 23s, this one maybe a 21, and I think this one was a 19 or a 17 or something like that. But that was it. Swapped that out, put the new O-rings on it, and then I hooked up my vacuum pump to my gauge system, and I cranked it down and I let it run for about an hour, and it sucked it right down good. Didn't appear to be any leaks. Then I started filling it, and we're going to finish filling it right now. So far it's taken, I don't remember whether it was 5 or 6 cans. I think it's 5 cans I've put in it so far, and it was showing just a little bit low on the gauges. So I'm thinking that this 1 can, or maybe a little more than this can, and it should be topped up right to the max. So we're going to start the car right now. Turn all the air on high. Hopefully everything still works. And the rear. Oh yeah, it's cold already. I love it. All my fittings are good, and you can see that I'm showing a little bit about right on the low end and a bit low on the high end, on the high side. So that's pretty good, and actually that's a little better than it was the other day. Before I was showing right at about the low end of both. So it may not take much more than a little bit of this can. So we're going to finish this up. Make sure we get liquid. Now we're going to slowly crack the valve, let it suck in a little bit more. See how the high side's coming up a little bit? Oh yeah, she's coming in nice. Put a little more in. Gotta be careful, you don't want to spike it, because then you can do some O-ring damage if you're not careful with it. compressor is running real well. See how much we got left. And it's taken about half of that can so far. Put a little more in it. Empty. Yep. And that is exactly what you want to see. We should have nice cold air. I don't have a quickie read thermostat. Yep. Yep. And we can feel we've got cold fluid coming in the top and warm fluid going out the bottom, which is exactly what you should have because it's heat transferring in there and doing what it needs to. So everything's functioning. I am ecstatic because that was a very cheap fix, if somewhat involved, to get this whole thing apart. But now I'm going to start putting the whole thing back together. So air conditioning repaired. What the hell? So, I started troubleshooting my little tiny HVAC issue. What I found is that the air inlet door here won't open when you put it on max AC. Everything else seems to work, but that won't open. Most everything looks pretty good in here. Everything else works. My rear AC is working great. But I noticed in the engine compartment a vacuum line that goes, well, to nowhere. And it activates that thing. Excuse me. And that is the heater control valve. And going through the manual and looking at how this system is supposed to operate, when you put it on max AC, that sends vacuum to the actuator that runs that door that determines whether it sucks from here or recircs on the inside. Well, this line is supposed to be teed off of that somewhere, because that same vacuum signal closes this, as I just demonstrated, and shuts off the heat to the heater core to give you even more air conditioning. So somewhere in that dashboard over here-ish, I have an open vacuum line, which is why that's not functioning, because it's got a vacuum leak. As, of course, my luck would have it, the only way to get to the actuator for that air inlet door is to remove the entire, and I mean the entire, dashboard. So that starts with getting rid of the console, getting rid of the steering wheel and the airbag. Thank God I've got a puller. I've used that 150 times now. That's the best money I ever spent. Obviously, I've got rid of this panel. I just pulled out the passenger airbag, took the glove compartment off. Now I got to start taking these trim panels on each side off, these trim panels on each side off, and then I got to pull all of this and the knee brace underneath that, and then we're just going to keep continuing. I think the gauge cluster has to come out. It's impressive, but the owner's manual is very, very thorough, and so far they're getting me there. But basically I have to get up behind this airbag mount. If I could just cut if the airbag didn't exist, it'd be easy. But up behind that airbag mount, I'm not sure if you can see back in there, there's a couple of vacuum hoses. Not really. But up and behind that airbag mount is where I need to go and find out where that little line got yanked out of the dash from. I don't know how you can do it. Somebody managed to, and I think that's my culprit. The fun part is going to be trying to hook up enough wires back together where I can actually test it before I put this thing back together. I think I can just hook all this, I think I can just hook this panel back here, and then I'll have the key, and I should be able to turn all that crap on. I think, because I don't think any of this other garbage down here affects that. But we shall see. So, that's my project today. Phew! Okay, well, that's pretty much what it does. This is the actuator. Here's your white line, and here's where the gray line splits off. Weirdly, these are serious connections. You cannot disconnect these. They're like glued. This black line is your vacuum for the entire system. That also comes out the dash. And I found the hookup on the other side coming out of the main plug from the dashboard panel controls, and put some vacuum on it and it would move. So that pretty much answered my question. But this is not loose. This is tight. And so I did some more fiddling around out here. I had to pull the battery out and disconnect some wires and some other things. And there we go. There's actually a rubber bulkhead connector. If I can show it to you. Both of those lines go through. And if you can, what happened is that line must have got hooked on something and yanked it out of the bulkhead connector, because I just rammed it back into its hole and applied vacuum to that flapper door again, and she worked. So that would have been simpler had I realized that's all it was. But I didn't have to disconnect everything because I didn't want to take the whole dash out. I just needed to lean it forward enough so I could get at that thing. But this being said, if your actuator in here ever goes bad, this is how you have to change it. There is no other way. Absolutely no other way. And the same thing if your blend doors for the heat, if that thing ever goes bad, this is also how you have to change it. So it's pretty crazy, but in the grand scheme of things, yeah, here's one of the blend doors there, and one of the transfer doors. In the grand scheme of things, it's just a lot of parts. It's not overly terrible, but it certainly is something else. And I think I'm going to wait till tomorrow to put it back together, because it's almost 7 o'clock. Anyway, that is what you need to do. So if you ever end up with a missing line up here and your flappy doors don't work, check this first, because that has to be hooked into that wire, into that bulkhead connector. So anyway, hopefully that helps somebody out, because my goodness, that was a job.